All right, guys, how we doing? Happy Friday. Here we are on the last day of January. Now we're going to take a look at the S&P today. We've got a little volatility, so I thought it might be a good time for an update. Quick reminder, as you saw in that pre-roll, version 2, we're now 12 days away from launch. So if you're interested, right, it's still timing. It still allows for you to become an original member. There's some advantages there. If you're interested in any of that, some of that, the benefits there, would just reach out to us if you have questions about it. Of course, the link to our landing page about version 2 is directly underneath this video. All right, so with that, let's take a look at the S&P. So first thing, we got to get a little perspective. So I've got a weekly chart here. So we see markets down, well, Dow's down 500 plus points today. So seems like a lot. You know, a little perspective, really, it's hardly a blip here. So I don't have all of our history, but I can go back to 70 here, so we can make use of this here. So of course we've got the range here to where looking at it in log scale would make sense. That can help with the wave separation. I don't know what we really need to here. I mean, this is right for Ellioticians. Just a great example of an expanded flat, right? Just couldn't. It's almost like literally you've taken a stick figure. Now I know, right? Subdivision would be open to interpretation here, but that broader structure, that's about as good as they get. So if that's the 4 and we're up in the 5, we've got this ripping extension here in the 5th. Well, there's only so many ways to count it, right? Until we get to this last leg, which of course what makes it interesting. So we can, depending on how you're counting this is corrective here, of course, right? So there's probably Ellioticians might differ on how to count that. But we can certainly get the internal impulse here in the 5th. So you can't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to get the subdivision here, I think you do have to go 1, 2, 1, 2. I think we probably all agree on that. 4, now are we up for the 5? So this has been my primary count down here, and we're going to go through 3 different counts, two alternates that are very close here, and then something that it's technically valid. I was proposed by one of my members here, and I thought we'd take a look at that as well. So I try and move as quickly as I can here. So here would be our larger correction here. So again, there can be a number of different ways you could count it, but if this is a corrective low, where it's gotten challenging here because of the complexity here is off of this low, off of our December low. So what the hell do we have here? Of course, what's making it difficult here, and all the conflicting opinions would be tied to to this section, right? It's difficult. Any Elliotician is going to have a challenge counting this, but we can, again, as is the amazing thing about the Elliott wave principle, is that we can always find a way that works. Always. It's remarkable. So now this is my primary, although I've got a secondary that's pretty close contender here. Now this has been somewhat controversial count, right? I don't have a lot of acceptance of this account amongst colleagues and members. Right? So some see it, some don't. So what I'm implying here through the count here is extremely bullish. So whatever we've done up here is just a 3. So there's more. We are unresolved here, even with at this degree. So we are nowhere near the final top. That's what this count would apply. So per that, let me just bring it down here a little bit so I can just use my tool here. So I have us going 1, 2, still seeking the 3, 4, and 5. All right, so then you look at this, right? This would be a great exercise. Members or YouTube subs, how you're counting this would be a real challenge. So first challenge would be, can you come up with 3 legitimate alts, right? Alternative counts here that would be valid. That would be the first challenge, see if you can do it. Because there are multiple ways to count this. Now, so it really comes down to this one section within this challenging section. Right off the bat, it's already a little problematic because we don't have any decent wave 2s, right? The contender here for the wave 2 is just coming to the 38, which again, it's not unheard of, right? It's 12% of wave 2s only make the 38. So given the conditions, the backdrop here of just blatant market manipulation from the Fed, that's not shocking that we would have such a shallow retracement. But here's where it gets a little trickier. Now, let me see, 8 hour. Let me zoom in here a little bit. This is the challenging part here. So on the assumption that that's a 2, or we've completed a corrective wave here, coming up off of this. Well, first, of course, we have just I've shown this multiple times. It's just a straight rip V, right? Just unbelievable. Down, rejected immediately, right? It just comes all the way screaming back here. We get a little subdivision here, but the 1, 2, you got to dig the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's there. So we can get the 1. So you get a big extension in the 1, but this gets really tricky in here. You've got to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get your 3. Amazingly, right? This is just amazing here. This wave 1 pivot here for this to play, because at first glance you would look at it and say, oh, I got a diagonal, but it doesn't play because this is held to the tick. So from the 1 down to the 2 to the 3, we come and hold it to the tick before we come up and get the 5. So you've got to treat it as an impulse. Tighten you up a little bit right there. So I think we've got a contender here. Now it's unusually shaped, right? It's lacking the traditional symmetry, but for a big rip in the 1, I mean, it flies, right? So we don't violate any rules here. We're on the edge of what you might accept with regards to the symmetry of that structure. But big kicker in the 1. We finish with so this is an impulse that finishes up here. Gives us the 1. Now, here's where it gets tricky and open to some interpretation. I am counting this and have been counting this because I don't want to fight the trend here, and I think we've got way more to go. So this is what I've been seeing here. So I've been seeing this as a completed 1. Then we are going into an expanded flat, right? Interesting, right? Oh, pardon me. This is a running flat because we don't get a new low. So I get an A. I'm counting this as an A, B, C into the B, and then I'm getting the truncation in the C here to complete my second at this degree. Right? Unusual, right? So it's all a function of how you're counting that final leg down. So do we have is this move here, is this a 5 or a 3, right? And it's really tough to have any conviction there in that. So if it's a running flat here and the 2 is in, and I'll show you part of why I'm using a little deductive reasoning here to come to that conclusion. The ABC is all solid. I can get the C here. I can get the 5 here. I can get the motive into the C. I've got a motive into my A, B, C into the B. I can get the 5 here. So I've got an ABC completion here. So essentially we double top. Now it's the move down that's really tricky. So it's, again, it would be difficult to have any conviction into this count. So you've got some sort of ugly diagonal with an extension in the 5th. So you got to go 1, 2, 3 here, 4 overlaps the 1, and then we have the big rip in the 5 to finish it. Now, could be counted differently, I understand that. But I think we've got a contender here because while it's ugly, it is valid. So if it's 1, 2 via the running flat, well, then we carry on here. I can go 1, 2, 3, or I clear 4 here. Now I finish. I've got an impulse to finish up here to give me the 5th of the 3rd at this degree. All right. So putting that all back together, 1, 2, 3, looking for the 4. Now, what's helping influence that decision, right? To make this my primary count? Well, let's just use some of our wave relationships here to see if we can help use these more typical wave relationships to identify it. So if I'm correct here, if this is the 1 and through the running flat we've got a 2, take a look at where our wave 3 has just come in. Right? Highest probability zone for a wave 3 right there. Right? So we literally come up and we tag the 1, 6, 1, 8. Remarkable, isn't it? It's absolutely mind-blowing. Right? Yet there it is. So that's influencing my decision here to trade this as my primary. So it's very bullish because the implication would be with a lot of people looking at this as something has completed here, but I've got it's just completing the 3rd. So now, of course, we'll know based on what happens here with this corrective wave here. You can make a case here that it's too soon to really call anything and way too soon to say potentially we're in. I do not think we are done yet. So if this is 3, 4, 5, we're just completing the 3 at the largest degree, implying substantially higher prices still to come. All right. So with that as a contender, let's just say that it's a contender here for a count. Well, where are we looking for the 4? So we take from our 2 here, the proposed 2 via that running flat. So something down here in this range. You see, I've got plenty of volume if we're coming down here. So we can just tie it all right to that. So if we're going to get, right, it remains to be seen what we're going to get here. And of course, we could come lower. We could, right, I mean, just too soon to make any projections here. Although this would be your high probability zone, right? If we're looking for the 4, given the fact that this does not look like it's finished here, something along these lines. If this is going to end up being an A wave, something like this, then we'd carry on with the trend. I think that is most probable. Right, but that's all it is. It's a probability event. So just using traditional wave relationships and fib retracement levels, and just what I can see here looking at the market, well, I know I've got potential for some support here. I'm just now tagging the 144. I'm just to the Vegas wave now. It's a challenging count, right? But it all comes down to this, right? How you're counting this. So when we look at the alternate, we'll look at a different way that this could be counted. That is, it's less bullish. It's still bullish, but not quite as bullish in that we still haven't put in the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Right? So this is the most bullish of the alternates here. But because it's unclear here, we've got to consider an alternate. So let me bring up an alternate here, and then we'll look at the more bearish potential here. Pardon me. So wrong one. So let's go here. This is an alternate here that is equally valid. Oh, let's see. Let me go back out here so we can look at it at this degree. Okay, so just again working off of this, whether it's WXY or this is to put it in context, I guess we'd have to get the whole thing put together. All right, so there would be our Y. So coming off of this, we're looking to complete something here. Okay, so off of the low, yeah, I get a clear impulse. Same condition here. We still have the shallow 2 here, via crystal clear ABC, right? It's, again, can't Photoshop them any cleaner. ABC, we come right to the point of control here via this visible range, and up we go. So now look in here, because this is open to the interpretation here, because it's just impossible to have any clarity. So here again is the difficult section. Well, let's do it this way. This is the section that's open to interpretation right here. So if you're counting this via this alternate, see if I can do it here in the in the 8 hour. All right, this would have us going 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. I know, crazy, huh? All right, but let's think about it. So I've got a clear impulse here, right? That's hard to argue with that one. ABC, hard to argue with that one. Now again, we got the same condition here in that we have the extension in the 1 to give us the little impulse here. Remember, that's with the wave 1 here that didn't overlap. It held it to the tick. So you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not the cleanest impulse, and there's certainly the symmetry is unusual, yet technically valid. Well, now here, let's see, I'd have to go. You won't see it at the 8 hour, but there's a little A, B, and a C to give you a 2 down here. Now this is very deep. Note here we go well past the golden zone. We get through this. I think it's very close to the 887. We get through the 786, yet still internal retracement. Right, now note here what we just did. Right, we know that's very close to the 1618. Okay, so if this is ABC into the 2, let's go to the 3 hour here. We can see it a little better. Let me pop that up. Okay, so here's the section we're talking about. Okay, I've got a contender here, so it's a bit of a push here to get so you'd have to go A, B, C for the 2. Now I can go into a 1 here in the same way in the prior count I could go A here. So I've got a motive wave here. I can go A or 1 here, A, B, C into a 2, and then yet again I think we go 1, 2. Because I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to give me a 1 here. Now, is this an ABC? So that's what we were just talking about. Is this an ABC or is this a motive wave? Right? Is that a 3 or a 5? Right? Good luck with absolute definitive labeling there. It's just not there. You could really, it's just kind of a push, right? You could count it either way. You could go A, B, C down here into this. So you're kind of stuck with a shitty count going, well, I mean, it reminds me a bit of Bitcoin, right? Which I'll be getting to next. In that you absolutely cannot have any conviction in that count. It's just way too unclear. How? Now, fortunately, this isn't going to make a huge difference in terms of where the next trade is. But for right now, this is a section that, good luck. Right? Good luck counting that. Could be counted either way. It's the last move down. We can get the impulse in that. That's just fine. Oh shit! I mean, you could count that a couple of different ways, but you can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that. So if you're going to go A, B, C, this is certainly valid here to go 1, 2, and then yet again into a 1, 2. Now in this count we'd have finished the 3, 4, 5 here to give us at this degree we'd be here going from this pivot we'd be at 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I got to scrunch to get it completed. 5. Okay, so all I'm doing now is completing the impulse from this 2 to give me that 3 right here. So at the next degree, I'm still here at 1, 2, 3, looking for the 4 before I go up for the 5. Right? But no, the difference being that this is 4. Where are you up here? This is 5, and we'd be completing the 3 at the larger degree. So equally, very bullish, but 1 degree lower, so not quite as bullish as the previous count, because we've got 1, 2, 3 has completed, 4 going in before we go up for the 5 of the 3 of the next degree. So both just very, very, very bullish. So it's partly a question of how you're interpreting this. I think from this low, the impulse here is pretty solid. This a little shakier. This third here, much like that prior section, this a little shaky in here, right? Again, hard to have a whole lot of conviction into how that breaks down as an impulse. You can kind of work backwards, right? So you can get the 3, 4, 5 here, but well, actually you have to do it right here, or it's not long enough. So you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get that impulse there. And it's a little shaky on the count, right? It's lacking the kind of subdivision, that nice clear separation that you'd like to see, unlike we get here in the 5th, right? That's clear as a bell. This one also a little shaky, right? Is it there? Yeah. Can you dig it out? Yeah. Do you have a whole lot of confidence in it? Well, maybe you do. I don't have a lot, but so either way, the net result here is whatever's happening here is corrective, rather than a substantial trend change. Although there is a count that would imply, well, pardon me, both counts imply that this is corrective. So bottom line is, an Elliottician looking at this is going to be hard pressed to have us completing at the largest degree here. It still looks like we're still carrying on here, and all we're doing right now is just in the process of correcting this last impulse. So this, looking for that location from the 2 low, which now is down here, right, would put us here. So this has us a little bit lower, but not that much farther, right? So if this is going to go A, B, C, if we're going to get an A, B, and a C, we'd still be in this range here where we'd anticipate support. Even if, yeah, I mean, first question is, are we going that low? So from the 2, difference being 1 you're pulling from this, 1 you're pulling from this, right? That's the major distinction between the 2, other than how many waves are still yet to complete. So is it this or is it this? We're going to wait and see. Right? We'll know, certainly, as a function of how far this goes. Right? And it's not impossible that we've got our top. It's not impossible. But applying Elliott wave principle here, it would be less likely. That's all you get. It's just a probability. Certainly, it's possible, just less likely. That's all we can do. So where's the trade? Well, is there a trade? I think to some degree you can look at this and say, well, if we're retracing here and we don't have, so we all know what's pushing this, right? Depending on how severe the problem is with this virus, and is it indeed going to start impacting economies? This could certainly get pretty ugly. Now, in the backdrop of that, you've got things like Apple and Amazon hitting levels that we've never seen, right? I mean, these are trillion-dollar companies that are just charging on, right? Is the virus going to slow it down? Well, I mean, these are the black swan events that you cannot plan for, but you can almost count on them coming when you least expect them. So given this move we've had, this astonishing rip, all of a sudden, it's the unforeseen. It's the event you cannot plan for. No algorithm can anticipate it. But certainly, we can look at some, just as we did, we can look at some wave relationships here that would suggest, like, well, if it were going to start topping out here, here at this degree, now I'm past that level. But if you'll recall, right, what's the difference in terms of where we're putting the 2? Actually, we'd do it here. So if this is 1, and again in the other count, if this is my larger 2 at that degree, so the 2 is over here, larger degree, Yeah, we're right there. So, so is it coincidence? It's interesting, right? Is it a coincidence that we hit the 1618 at the pivot here, and then we get the coronavirus? Coincidence? Well, I'm making a statement. I'm just, kind of an interesting thing to ponder. Now, let's just consider the alternate here, because again, there is no conviction here in account, other than whatever we're doing. This is per my two primary accounts. This is corrective rather than a substantial. Rather than a move that's going to go back down and challenge some of these lower pivots. Right? That would be my proposition to you. So let's look at the alternate. Here's the alternate, and this was proposed by a member, and I've seen this count floating around. So for this count to be valid, you'd need to be let me pull back out to an 8 hour. You'd need to be interpreting this as a sideways combination. Now, so technically, it's valid. It is, right? So you could make the argument here that all we're doing here, we had that'll be easier. So well, let's see. Let's just do it this way. So I was going to concerned about the prior count here, but we'll just work off the pivot here. So if this is a W, and we've gone up here, there is a case to be made here that we've gone up in an A, we put in this triangle B, and now this 5-wave impulse that's completed here is giving us a completed ABC of an X wave as part of a sideways combination. Now, what's interesting, note this. You see, you look at the 1618 here and you're like, oh yeah, right, you just showed me that. No, that's not what I just showed you. What I'm showing you here now is the length of this swing going the other direction. We've hit 1618, the length of that swing. Now look at the confluence here. So as you'll recall, what I was taking was this is the 1, this is the 2. Oh, pardon me, I got the wrong one. All right, there's so many of them, I'm starting to forget. Okay, so it was here, 1, 2. If I get right on it. There it is. Okay, so you see what I was doing there? So I've got, in the prior count, I had 1 via the running flat, 2, we're coming right up here. Now we're right back to the 1618. So interesting confluence there. So again, coincidence? Something to ponder. All right. Just the nature of the markets. So you could go A, B, C. Now there's two things that I would, the reason I would not have this as my primary account. Number one, I mean, this is kind of staring you in the face. Does that look like a sideways correction? Is there anything about that looks sideways other than this section right here? Yeah, you could call that sideways. But that's 1,000 S&P points. All right, we've gone from 2,300 to 3,300. That doesn't look terribly sideways to me. But technically, right? The rule is, and I had to check with my Elliott wizards that are on my team. In the sideways combination, it can be 2x the length of W, right? So at this point, we're 1618. So technically, it's valid. I've always used 141. The 138, 141 here is kind of the last stand that I would consider interpreting an X wave gone that far, or an expanded B going beyond that. Right? So I had to be corrected by my own team here to be reminded that in contemporary Elliott wave, and we had to go to the source on this, that X wave here in a sideways can go 200% the W, but it sure as hell doesn't look sideways to me. So, but I give you this alternate here because the confluence here of the 1618 here is absolutely stunning. Just remarkable that they could line up at that time, at that moment, right as we get the Black Swan event that would suggest that perhaps I've got a top of some significance. Either way, if this is a W with a hugely expanded X as part of a sideways, I mean, again, we could truncate the Y here, but something like that is WXY, right? Again, no telling where that Y is going to go, but it would be a function of, so if that's the case, then we're looking for an ABC to get down here. Right? It'd be worthwhile to have this and keep that as I am, right? So I have all three variations here, right? And then a weekly just to keep some perspective. But interesting, very interesting to see how that might play. But I think this would be the least likely of the three. Just in my view, just in terms of interpreting that as sideways, I think is quite the stretch. But right, anything's possible. right? That's all we get with Elliott wave is just probabilities, and then the potential is via the market structure. So if this ends up being corrective, well, then you kind of go back to this and you kind of look at this and say, okay, so what that means is that this is all corrective, that this is not in here yet, and that this would be, we'd be interpreting this like this, is WXY would be coming in here to give us the 4, and that we in turn would then go from there up to the 5. So still, you're still not at the finish of the cycle here. You'd still have this to go once that ABC, again, if it turns out to be a sideways combination and we get a 4 down here, well, then you kind of look at that and go, oh, well, how would that relate? If this is the 3, well, we could certainly do it here at the 23. And we'd come to 38, right? So we'd have this structure here at the 38, right? So all of this right here between 38 and the 50. So if it were going to do that, but again, does that look like a sideways combination? I think less likely. All right, there we go. Shit, that's 26 minutes. Okay, guys, there you go. A lot of good, this is good. It's good practice in here, right? So now, yeah, you've seen it for mine. Now, bring up your own chart here. Now, having just watched me go through it, see if you can come up with 3 variations of this. And yours might be different than mine. But this is a great example here of how to approach this as an Elliottician. Before I wrap up here, we ought to go down. Let's go down to a smaller time frame here, because I'm assuming most of you have already caught this. Well, members, I'm sure you have. I'm down to the 15-minute. And let's look at what happened today. All right, all my day traders are all over this. Okay. So we get nice topping action up here. What do you think is right here? Do I even need to draw it? All right, so you see the initial reaction here at the 50. We go up, we tag the golden zone. Where does that look like we're going? That seriously should surprise 0 people. If you're a subscriber of mine or a member, members are already all over this. Or that's a gift, right? That's the market is gifting you that. Right? I mean, look right here. I mean, so you've got the structure there. You've got look at the low volume node right there. Yeah, it's just the market is gifting you that. I couldn't trace it. I'm busy. We're redoing the entire white belt for our members. Remember all of this action here, right? This is being completely redone. White belt is now given away for free here, right? So we're giving you the white belt here. So I've redone the entire thing, much better than it actually was before. But since we're giving that away, I had to redo the whole thing. All right, so what is it going to make the target? Well, nothing says that it must. Right, we're likely going to run out of time here before. Well, what time is it? We're going to run out of time. We may get there today. But now look at that. What does that look like to you? Right, this certainly just looking at it looks like, oh, come here, A, B, C of some sort. Sure looks like that's corrective. So do we have 1, 2? I think that the idea that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, the symmetry is pretty horrific there. The 4 relative to the 2, so that seems less likely to me as I look at that. So I think you're likely. Oh, even that. Let's just use our tools here. If this is 1, 2. Well, here's the gap that they had to fill yesterday. So they've come up and filled the gap with some extra juice to get it filled. So here's the gap that they left. So if this is really, this looks more like an ABC. Now we'll wait and see. So you could have a combination here. So this right. So that would work actually. So let's put the whole thing together. So you potentially would have this as a WXY. So you'd have ABC. ABC, right? We know an X wave ideally goes to the 618, literally goes and ticks it. Let's get this off of here. All right, so we've got this established. So if this is WXY already, right? We've got WX and Y going in. All right, well, this doesn't look like an ABC. It looks to me like we've got 1, 2, 3 going in, 4, so still more to come. Right, we put that in the context of where this could be going. So now we kind of pull back out here. And remember, I'm at a 15-minute, so as to how far this is going to go, and this could all get reinterpreted based on if and when we find a bottom down here. That's probably way too big here. We'll go put it in white. So if this is WX, right, at this degree, which is, I'd be more inclined to think that this is 3, 4, and 5 of the impulse here, and this is A, B, C of an X wave here. So what this would imply, bearish data down here. So if this is the A wave, right? So if this is an X, we got to finish with an A, B, and a C. So all of that would suggest in here. So let's go back to a 3-hour and see where that would put us here. So that we're back to the wave 1 pivot high, right? So if you start putting that all together, you can see how this area might be a reasonable spot. If we're really going to get a serious retracement down here, well, then of course we're going to come back into all of this market acceptance down here, right? But that's at 3,000. We got up to, what did we get as our 300? So it would be 300 S&P points, and it wouldn't shock me. There you go. There's a whole lot to chew on there, man. I went 30 minutes on that one, but that, right? If this is going to come down, if we're in a WXY and we're just getting started here, well, then this would kind of take you back to my primary, right? If this is 1, 2, 3 going in, 4 still going in, well, we're still looking for, we're still looking for the 5 at that degree before we carry on. And so this would be the 4 down here. Lots of different ways. It's going to be very interesting to see. So right now, I wouldn't be, certainly I wouldn't be shorting it here. You're way too late. I wouldn't be doing anything on a Friday in the first place, other than perhaps some day trading of this. But as we start the week next week, as we go into the week with likely have the political mess behind us, it's a fresh look at it. And so it's going to be a function of how we interpreting what's next with the situation with the virus. It's going to be interesting, right? So for those of you there are a lot of people making the comments that the coronavirus to an investor is just giving you a chance for this melt up to cool off and give you an opportunity to get back into the longer term bull, right? We'll be, as we get closer to some technical pivots here that would have this correction completing. We'll come back here and take a look at it, see if there's some trades setting up. Okay, guys, with that, I'll wrap it there, and we've got the Bitcoin video to come as well.